propulsion, you're really working on higher level skills. You're also working on the things that have a higher inherent cost in power and energy, and those are really limited and relatively non-renewable resources, all right? So how we apply them, when we apply them, right, really makes a difference. Okay, the reason we don't do too much of this too early is that, first of all, you must have your balance, your stability really wired in strongly in order to actually do these things effectively. If you don't have those, it's really hard to do those things. So what are we talking about here? All right, so we're talking about when we apply pressure, that we move ourselves forward, don't move the water around, all right? And that pressure may be from the hand and forearm, it may be from the leg. Right? The leg's pressure does not move us forward. It helps with the power generation by assisting with the weight shift. Okay, and the propulsion is actually produced from how you apply pressure to water with your arms. So as you do that, one of the things you want to spend countless hours thinking about before the race, all right, before you're under pressure, is the fact that what you're pressing on is water, all right? And that water is a bunch of disaggregated molecules, all right? It's really easy to start those molecules moving so that the molecules get stirred up, but you don't really move very far. We need stroke length and we need rate, all right? And to some degree, another trading chip we have is how much pressure we choose to apply. In a race, I'm constantly trying to find the right marriage, the right blend of rate and pressure, all right, for that stage in the race, all right, knowing what's coming forward. And I rely on having done that countless times in repetition swimming in the pool and as well as open water practice, so that literally I don't really have to think very much about it. I have these auto responses that are programmed into my brain, all right, so that when I race, they come out, all right. This is so, the opportunity to use this sort of thinking, this sort of strategic awareness, all right, and finesse in how you apply those resources is so much greater in open water than it is in the pool. In the pool, it really does come down to a lot to fitness, athleticism, inherent power you have, and things like that, all right. I'm not very competitive with the best people in the pool. I'm very competitive with the best people in open water, and I can outswim people that are far faster than me in the pool because I love swimming open water, because it really appeals to me that, as Margie said, you can punch above your weight, all right, in open water, which is really hard to do in the pool. So what we're gonna do today, all right, with the caveat that you need to still be working on your balance and stability over time, so that these things we do today work better and better and better, and especially work when you've raised your rate, when you started applying more pressure, when there's a lot of people around you and you're feeling under pressure. Okay, so you keep working on that. You never stop. So, all right. So the first part of how you create propulsion with your arm starts with your arm has to be in the right position, all right? And the other two groups, and I haven't swum with you yet, so I haven't had the chance to observe you underwater, but in the other two groups, virtually no one has their arm in the optimal position, all right? I haven't mentioned it to them because they're dealing with other stuff, all right? At some point it will be appropriate to bring that in, but they're dealing with other stuff. Having watched you swim surface the other day, all right, looks like for the most part you're ready to do this, because your form you look stable. You look stable on the surface, right? You look smooth on the surface, right? So what I'll be looking at as we swim is I'll be looking at the extent to which you have an arm position that looks like this. So just visualize a balance ball and drape your arm over it. All right, as we start this exercise, we're going to be focused mostly on creating a sense of shape and volume under the arm. All right, the shape we want is one where the hand, it's really easy to get the hand position to apply pressure, so the resultant force is that way. All right, any force you apply in any other direction is wasted, and we can't afford to waste. All right, so The first thing is to have the hand positioned so that when you apply any pressure, the resultant force is going to move you forward. All right. It's unless you are Osama Maluli or Grant Hackett or any of these guys who are, and women who are world class, all right, and have an ability to almost dislocate the shoulder blade. That what they call the early vertical form, and they promise you that paddles will teach you and so on. That is pure nonsense. All right. What you require is a shoulder blade that practically is able to dislocate. That's one of those talents that allows a person to be a world-class freestyler and get the arm in and do that. Okay? Because if you watch video of someone like Osama bin Maluli from the side underwater, you see his shoulder blade popping out. All right? And practically bursting through the skin. Mine doesn't do that, or it doesn't matter if every single brain cell I have is thinking about doing that. It's just never going to happen. All right, so I make sure that I've got the hand facing back, and I do that by relaxing, not by turning on. Okay, and then I have to use muscles, the posterior deltoid primarily, to lift the scapula. All right, and open the axilla. Those are the two actions, and they're pretty subtle actions, all right? And the limiting factor on how much pressure I can apply is not the power I have here. It's the ability of these much smaller and less powerful muscles to hold that position. Because if I maximize the power in the prime movers, all right, these secondary movers are just going to give up, and I end up with something that is sort of sliding the hand back as opposed to holding that position. And by the way, you do have, right, it did see you enough yesterday to see that you do have an inherent ability to do that that's better than most people's. So that's good.
It's Pilates.
Pardon?
It's Pilates, I think.
I think you're born with it. I've done Pilates, and I've done yoga, and I've done all kinds of things, and that doesn't happen. All right? So in any case, you visualize. We're going to start out, we're going to go through a series of focal points. We'll do a couple of rehearsals and a series of focal points, all right? You're not going to learn this in the next 90 minutes, all right? What you're going to learn is the process that you can continue to make this better, all right? So the starting point is to visualize a balance ball and drape your arm over it. And I use that word drape very consciously to connote that it's relaxed.
Where's the pole? Where am I visualizing?
The ball is between...
Oh, bowl.
Yeah, a balance ball, a Swiss ball.
Oh.
A Swiss ball, all right? So you visualize, and as you do that, think about how large is that ball? Is it 55 centimeters, 65 centimeters, all right? And the space between my palm and my hip is what I'm conscious of. I'm thinking about the size of the ball that I've got there, okay? And then once having draped and defined the space, define the volume as best I can, all right? Now what I'm going to do is just, in my mind, just hold the ball. So there's light activation of the arm muscles, so I feel I'm lightly holding it against my hip. Okay? That's the feeling that you want to have as you begin applying pressure. All right? As I drop into the water through the male slot, and this is why we teach the male slot early, because it sets you up to do that. All right? I'll mention one more thing I've observed about triathlon. I've watched the end of the Ironman from up here on the pier as people are coming in after swimming their 2.4 miles. I've watched other races from the shore and seen people, moving through the latter stages of the race. And you can really observe things about what predominates in the early part of the pack, in the mid part of the pack, and the rear. And when I look at the first 10 to 20% of the field, I see a large percentage of people going in so that the hand precedes the forearm, precedes the elbow. And then as you go further back in the field, you see more of that on entry. The flat entry, elbow hitting. The further back in the field you go, the more it's the elbow hitting first, all right? So that male slot entry is really characteristic of success in triathlon swimming and other swimming as well, all right? So we're setting ourselves up for that position with the male slot. So we keep in mind that's really critical at some point in the race to be checking in whether you're going through the male slot, even listening, all right? Because that entry is quieter than this thing, all right? So one of the things you do while racing is be checking in on how much noise you're making, especially when you're in a pack, especially when you're starting to pick it up. Am I staying quiet? Am I still going through the slot? Or am I, in my excitement and rate, am I starting to do this? Okay? So, now hold the ball. Just visualize holding the ball, all right? Now, lift the ball out of the water, lift the ball a few inches. Just visualize that you're holding the ball, you're still holding, lift it a few inches, all right? And then rotate your shoulder while still holding the ball and drop the ball behind your hip. Rotate your shoulder and drop the ball behind your hip. Now I'm going to do this several times. I'm going to lift the ball from behind my hip. I'm holding it back here. I'm going to leave my hand here, fingers at the bumper, okay? I'm going to lift the ball, carry it forward, and put it here against this part of my hip. Lift it, return it, drop it. Okay, this is a visualization we're going to start with. We're going to rethink our recovery, all right, from 3 thoughts: elbow circles, paint the line, ear hop, mail slot. 4 thoughts. From 3 or 4 thoughts, we're going to consolidate into 1 thought, which is, what's my optimal position to start the stroke, all right? And can I come out of the water already in that position, carry an arm forward without any change in shape, and drop it, all right? So we're simplifying the thought into one awareness. If I watch you swimming, all right, and you go that way with 3 thoughts, a little bit with 1, and the 2nd and the 3rd, and then you get over there, and then you come back with the 1 thought, I should not see anything different. You should experience something that you distinguish as different, all right, once you change from the 3 thoughts to the 1. And this process of being a little bit more demanding of your brain and how to conceptualize on what you're doing is one of the things that wires it in so that when you're under pressure, when you increase rate, and so on, it doesn't break down. Okay, so you have to create a more robust circuit so these things don't break down under difficulty. All right, so once we introduce racing, pressure, and by that I mean this pressure as well as that pressure, all right, and rate, we need this thing to be unbreakable. All right, and one of the tools you use in practice is more thoughts to wire it in. Okay, so we're going to start with some visualization and rehearsal. The rehearsal means standing on one side, all right, with that hand on the bumper, hold the ball against your hip, lift it a bit, carry it backward, drop it in, lift it, carry it forward, drop it in, all right? So we'll do that a bit with the right arm, and then swim over, just checking whether we feel the same sensation as we go across, all right? Then we'll do the same thing up with the left and swim back, checking whether we're doing the same thing, okay? That will be the first step. The second step will be, having dropped it in, we will visually verify the position, all right? We won't do this first because all our focus is on something that's happening over here, all right? Then after we've had a little bit of time to familiarize ourselves with that thought and the sensations that accompany it, then what you're going to do is visually verify that the position you have entered into is the one you want, the water holding position. I call this the armful of water position because it's the optimal position for trapping water behind hand and forearm. All right, step 2 will be to visually verify and see that it's still for at least a nanosecond after you drop it in. All right, and this idea of it being still is a hypercritical one. All right, the men's 4x100 relay in Beijing, where Jason Lezak went by Alan Bernard from France, incredibly. They had for a while on NBCOlympics.com. They had underwater video of that race. And in studying it, if you had the opportunity, this is what you would see. All right, Lezak, despite swimming, I don't know what the rate was, but it was exceptionally fast rate swimming. All right, his hand dropped in, and there was a nanosecond where it was still after he dropped in before he began pulling. And Bernard, in contrast, slammed his hand, and then it just kept going forward, going back. Bernard took 46 strokes on the second lap when the wheels came off. Lezak 34. 12 fewer strokes, and I went by him in the last 25 like he was standing still, right? Because Bernard was moving water. Lezak was moving his body, and it's that position and that moment that makes all the difference. Okay? So that will be our second thing that will visually verify that we're in that position and it's still for a moment. We'll take some time on that. All right? And then finally, how we begin applying pressure after that is we're going to visualize this disaggregated ball of molecules, not just water. All right? What it really is, all right, is a ball of molecules, and as you press on it, you're going to do it with a sufficient patience and care that in your mind, you're keeping those molecules together to move your body forward. All right? When you do that, you should notice something that may have escaped your attention before, that water has density, that it has thickness, all right? And if you apply pressure in the right way, you can feel it return that pressure, all right? You want to feel that pressure so that it converts into forward movement, okay? I can't tell you how many dozens, if not hundreds of hours I've spent visualizing like that, and it makes huge difference. I can go 0.95, 0.90 rate and not feel any turbulence as I start the stroke. It makes all the difference. Okay?